Now, according to STAG African, a student accommodation development company, more than half of the first-year university students who recently completed their final year exams will fail. They believe the main reason for this is a lack of decent accommodation facilities outside universities. Managing Director at STAG African, John Schooling, joins us on the line now. John, a very good afternoon to you. Now, how did you come to this conclusion?
Quite a lot of empirical research has been done on it. For example, the ministerial report on student accommodation came out indicating the scale of the problem that students were experiencing as far as getting good, adequate accommodation. The most important thing about having good accommodation is the contribution that it makes to whether students passes or fails. And research has found that if you have good student accommodation on campus, then there's an immediate 20% improvement in the pass rate. Without that accommodation, often drops down quite dramatically to less than 40%. So if we in South Africa want to improve the student pass rate, all we have to do is provide very good on-campus student accommodation.
So what do you mean exactly by decent accommodation?
Good accommodation is not an act, doesn't happen by accident. It actually happens by very, very careful planning. There is a right way and is a wrong way of doing student accommodation. Simply providing the beds is not about supplying student accommodation. Student accommodations are very, very scientifically thought out and carefully worked out program. And the most important thing about student accommodation is that it creates a sense of community, and everything about what you do towards designing student accommodation must be aimed at creating a community of people. What really happens at university is that you arrive there and you're one of 20,000 people. Very often you come from a small rural area where you had a small community. When you arrive at university and you're one of 20,000 people, you feel lost, you feel absolutely intimidated, and you're overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the environment that you're in. If, however, you're on good on-campus student accommodation that's been specifically designed to create a sense of community, you feel like you belong. For example, if you're in double accommodation with your roommate, you form a special bond with him. Your first community we refer to as the home or the pod, where there might be about 8 of you in it. So suddenly, instead of being one of 20,000, you're one of 2, you're one of 8, and then you're one of, let's say, 250 in your residence. And suddenly you feel like you're at home. You know, you're one of 250 rather than one of 220,000. So in actual fact, what you've done is you've reduced the scale of the university to one that people can actually, and a student can actually feel and fit into.
John, is it a case of determination here or making someone feel comfortable? If we take a look at rural areas, unfortunately in 2014, you still find children who are being schooled under trees in their numbers. So should we not look at the fact, is somebody determined to make it through school despite the conditions that they may be experiencing?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's critical when you consider that. Let's take, for example, a young lady grows up in a rural community. She works incredibly hard for her 12 years at school. She eventually gets through and she passes. And lo and behold, to the great glory and joy of the entire village, the entire town, especially the family, she gets to make it to university. And when she gets to university, what we have to do is create an environment that she can do as well as she possibly can do. And one of the ways of ensuring that she does as well as she possibly can do is to ensure that she has on-campus accommodation. If she doesn't have on-campus accommodation, then she spends most of her time either traveling to university or just basically surviving. So instead of focusing on doing what she's there to do, which is to study, have a good time, play some sports, socialize, meet a lot of very interesting people, she spends most of her time just trying to get by. And that actually takes away the opportunity for the student to perform optimally. If you think about an improvement of pass rate of up to 20%, then it becomes absolutely crucial that we actually do provide adequate, well thought out, well planned student accommodation at our universities. Unfortunately at the moment, and it's absolutely nobody's fault, it's no fault of anyone at all, we have 200,000 beds short at our universities at the moment. That means 200,000 of our students that go to university are not in ideal situations, and hence they run the risk of not passing or doing as well as they should do.
John, thank you so much. That was Managing Director at STAG African, John Schooling, ultimately saying there that conducive environment is also quite equal for thriving learners in university.